This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution. I'm sitting here with an iconic figure in the Toronto restaurant scene, Mr. Arron Barberian. How are you today, sir?
Having a great time, Jamie.
Now, for those of you who are not familiar with you and your work and your restaurant, would you mind giving a little explanation of what you've been up to for the last little while?
Well, my father, Harry Barberian, founded this restaurant about 52 years ago, and I've just been trying to keep it alive. It's a great little restaurant. Elm Street has been very good to us. What can I say? We've tried to keep this idea of a great steak restaurant going in Toronto. Very proud of it.
And are you the oldest steak restaurant in Toronto?
We feel we're the oldest white tablecloth restaurant.
I see.
And so whether it's, I don't think anybody goes back prior to 1959, so you'd have to have started in 1958. And I just don't see any. Maybe there's something inside a hotel, but I don't really think that counts.
And how would you describe the philosophy of your establishment?
Well, it's always been about consistency. We want to remain true and consistent. I take mistakes by the kitchen or floor staff or any letters that we get on occasion of concern or complaint very, very personally. It's very difficult for me to deal with. So I'm truly into consistency. I want your experience today to be the same as it was 10 years ago, to be the same as it will be in a year or two. Consistency is what I'm trying to achieve.
And I'd really like your insight into the world of beef and how it relates to what is available within Toronto. Could you tell me a little bit about your sourcing of beef?
Absolutely. This is an interesting question, Jamie, because years ago, when I first started running the family's restaurant, about 18 years ago, that's when I came back to Toronto, 17, 18 years ago. It was all about where the meat was from. And I was really into called the terroir of the beef. And it became I was an overdrive. That's what mattered. Where did it come from? What part of the United States? What steer plant in Colorado slaughtered the animals? This became critical. But as I've matured in the industry and as I've had a moment to kind of reflect, I realized that the source of the meat has become consistently less important. The true measure of a steak is what's put on the plate. And that includes the way the meat is aged and the way the meat is butchered. So we have selection, aging, butchering, seasoning, and finally the preparation. We've got 5 components that make the steak what it is on the plate. If you were just to take the steak that we bought from our source, cut it poorly, right when it was fresh, doesn't have any aging on it, cut it poorly, not using the grain properly, and then throw it on a whatever kind of grill you've got, it won't be the same. And so I realized that that's not a great test. The great test is everything else. When people come to me and they ask me, where's the beef from? Where is the beef from? I ask them a silly kind of question. I say, you know that beautiful Mercedes out front, where's the steel from? And they look at me like confused. I said, well, it's just a pile of steel out there, isn't it? Or aluminum.
Now, that's quite a controversial point of view in many people's eyes, is it not?
Well, I think it is until they start thinking about it. If you want to believe that great wine is just the grapes, you'd be wrong. Great wine is about what the winemaker brings to when he decides to harvest, how he makes the wine, when he decides to release the wine. There's a lot more that goes into making wine. If you just talk to a winemaker and say, where'd you get those grapes? Where'd you get those grapes? They probably wouldn't even talk to you. So certain businesses have elevated beyond just where's the supply from.
So are we talking about the human element terroir here?
Absolutely. That's a concept that was brought to my attention about a week ago by a winemaker from New Zealand who tried to say that terroir is not just where the grapes, or in this case, or where the product is from. it's more than that. It includes the human element. And that being said, how did those humans manipulate that land, and how did those humans manipulate the grapes and eventually manipulate the whole wine production? So it's the terroir of the individuals being there that added to the terroir of the land itself. That's an interesting concept. I think that's just, we'll call it the human element. Here, where I'm saying is the terroir of the meat has always been interesting to us, but I'm realizing that the human element in taking a side of beef, a steer that's been slaughtered somewhere in the world and brought to me, and turning it into a great steak on the plate, has a lot more to do with our skills than just the source of the meat.
So I'm going to ask you the question, where does the meat come from, and then who takes care of it for you? Who butchers it, and who ages it for you?
We have a master butcher, Steve Rogakos, started with my family in 1970, 71, just around Christmas of 1970. Steve is an absolute genius. His cutting skills are like few others. I ask him to cut 10 one-pound steaks in a row. You'll be down there and you'll throw them on the scale, and it'll come up 16 ounces, 16.01 ounce, 15.99. He can cut within a...
He's that good.
Oh yeah. And we've had great butchers and chefs and people in the meat industry come and sit in the cellar and watch him butcher for a while, and they just walk away shaking their head, because some of these people have $1 million pieces of equipment that are laser powered for cutting accurate steaks, and they don't cut as accurately as this man's eye. So Steve has been critical to us. Scott in the kitchen as well has been cutting meat for us for 27 years. So we've got two guys that are really great at that. They produce a specification along with myself that we pass along to our meat suppliers. Currently we have 3 or 4 meat suppliers. And they do a really, really amazing job. If the meat of Barbarians has a bone in, it tends to be American, almost exclusively. So the rib steak, the rib, the prime rib, which has the bone removed when we serve it, and the T-bone tend to be U.S. choice or higher or prime.
Would you mind explaining the reasoning behind that?
We find that when we age these pieces, and we dry age these pieces, we get a very consistent product to serve to the consumer. The amount of corn that these animals eat later in life in the feedlots, although it's not the most politically correct, there are many books and articles written about how feedlots work, they really do produce a very consistent, fine product. So that's a very good starting point for what we do as far as butchering and aging and serving and preparing and charcoal grilling steak. We find that the tenderloins, the filet mignon, very good Canadian product. It's really, really superb Canadian product. Locally, if we want to play the 100-mile diet game or whatever, the people at St. Helens Meats, the Bilac family, also known as Grace Meats.
They are Grace Meats.
Yeah. Right. Their slaughterhouse is just north of the new St. Clair Stockyards Home Depot. And they slaughter up to 500 head a day there of cattle. Some of it they do kosher. Some of it they do in a regular style. They when I ask Rachel or Bilac, whose family it is, I'm going to ask Rachel or Dad to source exactly what I want. They do amazing work, and we get stuff that's deemed Canadian Prime, and they're AAA, and they get the right sizes, and they're very good meat. So yeah, we are sourcing locally, which is a change. Before we would say that it all had to come from High River, Alberta, but we're finding that the local stuff is very good. Matter of fact, we'll call it superior after our hands are on it.
I'd like to ask you, for the average consumer, where would you recommend they would pick up a good piece of steak to cook themselves?
I think the local butcher scene is exploding right now. I really think that Steve at Cumbrace is doing an amazing job. O'Leaf's, if you want to spend a little more money, and that's the neighborhood you live in. Even Bruno's. I mean, there have been some changes around there, but I think they're doing some very good work. Yeah, you've got to become friends with your butcher.
Right.
Because they are going to take it that first 4 steps. They're going to select the meat. They're going to age the meat. They're going to, cut it and prepare it for you. You're the one who's going to make the final decision on how to cook it. Don't overcook it. That's just rule number 1. Is just don't overcook it. It's better that you cook it on lower heat, and take it off the grill and let it set and let it sit for a moment, and then serve your food. I think you'll have a much better experience. Also, one trick is the thicker the steak, the better. You're better off if you're looking at a steak, taking a bigger steak than a thinner steak. Make it thicker. Have some leftovers. Big deal. If you think it's too much, get a second meal out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, with regards to the aging of steaks, how does that work? Would you mind explaining that to our viewers? Is that something that you could do at home in your fridge, or?
Well, I think if you did it at home, your family would hate you. Your fridge is really not designed for it. It produces a very nutty, almost buttery smell, like sweet cream butter that might be on the edge of going off. It's not appealing. Yeah, you've got to control humidity and temperature, and you've got to almost have a mother. Our meat locker actually helps propagate this particular mold that develops around the meat, and it's green and it gets hard and ugly, and I don't know what you're gonna, why you'd want to do this at home. If you really feel that you have to do it at home, go ahead, give it a shot.
I was kind of kidding. I just wanted to see where you go with that. So.
I know nuts who can do this.
Really?
I would suggest you take that old. See, even a home refrigerator just doesn't work the same way. It controls moisture differently. But if you do, it's that fridge garage, the garage fridge that you But how are you going to hang a piece? How are you going to do it? It's tough to do it on. You got to depend on a great butcher.
How long is too long when a butcher is actually?
We're seeing this quite a bit. We're seeing in the name of producing aged beef, because that's now the dry aged is now the holy grail.
Yes.
We're seeing some shops basically take their mistakes, things that didn't work out for them, cuts they didn't sell, and promoting those as some sort of super aged steak. Well, there's a point where it reaches its flavor peak, and that's where your butcher has to decide when to pull that piece out. It's the same with cheese. It's like ripening bananas.
Yes,
there's a moment where they're just perfect, and then after that, it's like you got to just know what you're doing.
I have a question for you. I've been meaning to ask you this for quite some time. When we were journeying through Spain together, we were given some beef, and you were able to identify that it was female and that it was a cow. Can you remember this?
Yeah. And
how would one do that?
I guess it's my blink moment. But there was Malcolm Gladwell wrote it up so nicely about when he talked about an art critic seeing something and saying, "I don't get it," and it's tough to be the one who says, this is different. This is not steer. The grain was different of the meat. It was more open grained, and I looked at it and I said, this is interesting. This is not steer. This is cow. And sure enough, when the manager or the person came back and said, you're right. It is what it is. We tend to sell steer here. Tenders can go either way, but if it's a bone-in piece of meat, it's almost always it is steer. So you end up knowing the difference. I can't tell you how many steaks we've sold. We're selling a lot of steak seasoning. That's also good. Every steak made at Barberian Steakhouse has that Barberian steak seasoning on it.
And you're not going to tell us the recipe for that, are you?
I don't even know it anymore.
Okay.
It's blocked up. We last year 170,000 bottles across Canada.
Really?
Yeah.
That many?
Yeah.
That's why you never return my email.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm doing it. And I am trying to do a deal right now with one of the large chains I want to give more money to charity.
Mm-hmm.
So what I've said to one of the large chains is I will donate all the profits for a 5-year period up to $1 million to some sort of childhood disease. I'm working on that. If you'll take it nationwide and let me put a special label on it saying that this bottle, all the proceeds. I really think Paul Newman had it right when Paul decided to give away all the money from his salad dressing as popcorn. And the Barberian steak seasoning, it's very good. People should use it. It does make them. It somehow makes them into a better chef. Just kind of like buying a Viking range makes them a better chef. But it does. So I suggest that they that when we do this deal, they go out and buy this bottle where we give the money to charity.
Oh, well, I look forward to seeing that on the shelf sometime soon.
Thank you.
Arron, thank you very much for joining us today at Good Food Revolution. Thank you for your insight into the world of steak, and we look forward to catching up with you sometime very soon.
Thank you, Jim.